Hey everyone, welcome to A Talk and Talk. It's me, your boy, your host, OD, and today we'll be reviewing and analyzing chapter 1101 of One Piece. If this is your first time on this channel, please do me a solid like, share, subscribe. Even if you've been here before but haven't done so already, would greatly appreciate if you could do your boy a solid and just like, share, subscribe. It would mean the world to me. Anyway, without much further ado, let's get into this review. All right, guys. So, chapter 1101 of One Piece, Dear Bonnie. Pretty decent chapter. Something happens at the end that I'm very eager and excited to talk about. So, let's just breeze on through it. So, we start off this chapter with Kuma at the Goa Kingdom, right? And there's a flashback within a flashback, which I was super confused about because there's a moment where Kuma sees Luffy training. Luffy at this point, I believe, is 16. Yeah, he's 16 at this point because he starts his journey at 17 and he's training with all these animals and he uses Gum Gum axe on this giant boulder and completely demolishes it. There's a kind of a cringy part where he's like, there's gonna come a moment where like I have a crew and someone tries to take my crew away and I'm gonna use this attack on them and this is the attack he used on Arlong. A lot of people feel a type of way about this. I don't think it's the worst thing in the world, but it is a little weird that to like for him to say that. I feel like the dialogue's a little bit weird. It's a little. I feel like it's Oda just going like, ha ha ha. This is like the move that he used on Arlong, and look at him here saying that he would use this move if anyone like was like any of his crewmates were under threat. I still don't think it's the biggest deal in the world. Anyway, while after he does that, Luffy kind of detects Kuma, and at that moment, Kuma pawpaws himself away. And then we have a conversation between Kuma and Dragon. Now, at first, I was super confused because I was like, are you talking about just now when you were like watching Luffy? But no, this is like a different flashback. So I kind of feel like Oda could have done this a little bit better. But the fact that I was able to figure out means he did it decent enough. So, oh well, no complaints, right? But anyway, basically he's talking to Dragon about this kid he saw that reminds him of him, and Dragon's like, say less. He's like, okay, he's like, we both know what you saw. Yes, that's my kid. Are you happy? Like, yeah, that's my child. I have a child. Like there you go. And anytime we come to Goa Kingdom to stock up, to handle business, to find out information, whatever, I like to take some time out of my day to to just check up on him. He's my son after all. I'm curious, and I'm really really happy for that because basically Dragon's like, if you want me to die, if you want to get me killed, keep talking. And basically he's saying, if you get me to talk about having a child, get me to talk about having a son, it's inevitably going to result in that child being used against me. A child is a parent's greatest weakness, a parent's vulnerability. I'm Monkey D. Dragon. I'm leader of the Revolutionary Army. There's just so much more important things at stake than, unfortunately, me parenting my child. Do I love my child? Yes. Do I want to be with my child? Yes. But I'm fighting for the sake of the entire world, and unfortunately it's a sacrifice and a burden that I have to make and bear. And honestly, I respect that. A lot of people have been clowning Dragon recently. I think this development was greatly needed because, like I said, a lot of people were shit talking Dragon. A lot of people were going in and talking all this shit about how like when someone gets captured I sleep, when this happens like I act. And like, one thing I really like about Dragon, I said this last review, he reminds me of Law. Like, he's a tactical thinker. He does it. He's not super emotional. He does what needs to be done. He's not happy-go-lucky. We're a little bit biased. This whole series has been about dreams, ambition, will, and just really showing people doing what they want when they want. And Dragon, I'm pretty sure, is going to be at the height of all the bigs in the world. But just because he doesn't go out and just impose himself, just because he doesn't do crazy things like raid impel down and go straight to the world government, doesn't mean that like he's a shitty person or a leader. It's just like he thinks it's better to do things this way, and I kind of agree with him. Like, outside of a story context, outside of like a One Piece kind of like theme, what he's doing makes the most sense, and I feel it. And I'm just happy that we got a moment, even if it's just like a passing line that basically incentivizes the fact that, like, yeah, Dragon does care about Luffy, and the reason that he doesn't visit Luffy and that he doesn't he didn't stay with Luffy is for both the safety of Luffy and that of his greater schemes in general. And I love the fact that Kuma immediately was like, "Yeah, I'm not going to talk about it. Let's forget about it," because he realizes firsthand the vulnerability that children impose on you because of what he just went through with Bonnie. He essentially made a deal with the devil, signed over his entire life, his free will, and everything over to the world government just for the sake of Bonnie. So he's like, "Yeah, I get that. I totally get that." So anyway, Kuma continues to keep his promise and write tons and tons and tons of letter to Bonnie. Unfortunately, she's not getting that. Alpha or Alufa, whatever you want to call her, is destroying the messages. Why she's doing that, I have no clue. Honestly, if I had a theory, it's simply this. They know that, Kuma is supposed to lose any and all contact with her within a year, right? And so from their perspective, they're probably like, then what is the point of letting them have this interaction? Let's just make it a clean split. Make sure they don't give each other any ideas. The more that he writes to Bonnie, the more that Bonnie is going to long and endear for her father. So let's just nip that in the bud right there. I think that's one aspect of it. I think it's a little bit cruel, but I kind of saw this coming. I kind of expected something like this. And maybe they want to eventually use Joribani for their own means, for their own gains. Another thing I thought about, especially with the fact that, the nurse is out here giving her fake medicine, I was like, why are you even bothering to give her fake medicine? Why not just like secretly poison her? Why do you want to keep this child alive? There's a lot of problems with keeping this child alive. In fact, why are you guys even honoring this promise in the first place? Like the moment Kuma has no sense of self anymore, completely loses all self-awareness, you could just renege on your promise at any point. And so part of me thinks that there's a greater scheme at work. And if the theory that Bonnie is Saturn's daughter or a celestial daughter at all, maybe there is some kind of incentive to keeping her alive for some time. Maybe even is Saturn does kind of not want to see her harm, and that's why they're just giving her placebo medicine instead of just slowly poison her or secretly doing something to harm her, because Saturn actually does want her to stay alive. And that would explain why after stabbing Saturn with the sword and everything Joribani's been doing, why he still hasn't really sought after her life. So the entire time, Bonnie's been training with Gyu and the other fishermen and stuff like that. They've been completely keeping it under wraps that she has this devil fruit ability. When asked why, the Queen Dowager Connie, basically, she doesn't have any real reason. She just kind of has a feeling. She has a feeling that there's more than going on than meets the eye, and it's just better to keep all their cards, out of sight. They don't want to let anything go, which ends up working out extraordinarily well for them, because there's a point where Bonnie and Connie switch roles. So we'll talk about that now. So it's Joribani's birthday. Once again, not getting any letters from her father, and she's sad, but they celebrate. They make her a giant birthday pizza. It's an amazing time for her. She has an incredible time, but at the end of the day, she's sad about her father. So that's when Connie shows up and says, so one of the, they have stationed a bunch of people from CP8 outside of their house. They went to the town one day, got a little bit tipsy, started talking a little bit too much. Once they talk a little bit too much, they let it slip that Joribani has been cured for quite some time now. She can go at any point, but that's not the point. That they're staying here to observe her for some other reasons, and on top of that, that they've been keeping Kuma's letters away from her, right? And so immediately, like, that changes their perspective on what's going on. They immediately know, okay, Jory, we don't know what's going on, what they plan to do with you, but we got to get you out of here. Also, I love the fact that, all of them are like, it makes sense. There's no way on earth that Kuma would never write to you. Like, they grew up with Kuma. They've known Kuma like for decades. They know what kind of person he is. They know what kind of heart he has. There's no way that he's not writing to Joribani. So there was something, going on behind the scenes. So what happens is she switches clothes with Connie, uses her aging devil fruit, and sneaks past Alpha, right? Now, once they sneak past Alpha Alpha has a weird suspicion, so she goes into the house and she's like, "Where's Bonnie?" And Connie's like, "I'm Bonnie," and it's like, "No, you're not." And so at that moment, Alpha completely dipsets for the shipping for the fishing ship that Jory Bonnie has absconded with, and when she tries to attack the ship, Jory Bonnie turns into this kind of um, Nika form, Nika future, and hits the ever loving mess out of Alpha. And this was super interesting because one, it shows us that even though she's young, she's only 12, like 12 years old at this point, right? She is very, very strong, very well. She's probably like 11 now. Well, when is this? Is this 3 years ago or 12 years? Oh, sorry. 3 years ago or 1 year ago. Anyway, she's young. She's at most 12 years old. Okay, she's at most 12 years old, and she was able to take out this CP8 agent with just one attack. That honestly is super incredible. But one issue that a lot of people are gonna have is, okay, how exactly does her fruit work? When it was just aging and regressing people, that was understandable. Then later on in Egghead, we see her being able to produce some kind of weird jewels from these people. That's interesting, right? And then finally, she is able to give herself Gum Gum slash Nika Nika fruit abilities. What's going on here? And I wanted to talk about that for a second because Oda has kind of led onto this several times now, namely with the Zoan fruits. Some Paramecia he's done it with as well, like how Doflamingo can make the fire string and the bird cage and stuff like that. And there are just certain abilities of Devil fruits that are kind of weird and tangentially related to Devil fruits. I've talked about this in many reviews. I talked about this in my does Gear 5 ruin One Piece type video, blah blah blah, yada yada. And at the end of the day, it just seems like yes, Devil fruits have a specific theme, but as long as your imagination is big enough and your will is good enough and you just genuinely believe in this thing, the Devil fruit will actualize that power. Because at the end of the day, Devil fruits are the results of desire, right? So for example, think about in the Wano arc, right? When we had the Triceratops able to fly, and we had the pterodactyl able to like sling his nose, and like this is how ancient pterodactyl used to hunt. It made no sense. Think about what's his name, Kaku, with his giraffe fruit, how he was able to make it turn into squares and stuff, and like shorten his neck and whatnot. And it was like, and Zoro was like, that's not how giraffes work. I think as long as the user can convince themselves that this is an aspect of their animal that has always been, that they've always been able to do, then the fruit will be like, fuck it, okay, we ball, let's do it, and give them that ability. And so, in terms of that, I think it does make a little bit of sense why Bonnie is able to give herself the body of a potential future where maybe she did get the Nika fruit or she is a descendant of Nika. I remember saying last review and then immediately stopping it because it was stupid that maybe that's what that distorted future of her with the big upper bulging torso is, where she kind of looks like Kuma because she picked a future where she inherited his Buccaneer blood. But then I immediately deaded that because I was like, that makes no sense. She's not actually related to Kuma, so like there would never be a future where she inherited the Buccaneer blood. But now this chapter completely actually saves the point I was going to make, where it doesn't have to be actually logical. It doesn't have to be like an actual future based upon now. It's just any potential future. So maybe there's a future where she was born from Kuma. There's a future where she was the sun god Nika. Anything like that, she is able to actualize it. And I think it is going to end up resulting in one of the most cracked Devil fruit abilities that we have seen to date. And I think it's going to open the floodgates for us in terms of what each individual Devil fruit is able to do and accomplish. We've seen several times that many Devil fruits are able to emulate and kind of do abilities of other Devil fruits, right? And so I think this is why, as long as something is tangentially related, a Devil fruit will be able to accomplish it. So I cannot wait to find out more. Anyway, I'm gonna leave the review here for now. I know it was rather short, but I just wanted to touch on those 2 points. The last thing I want to talk about in this review is when Kuma asks Vegapunk, okay, so how is this gonna work? How am I gonna lose my free will? And he's like, essentially, you're gonna lose it bit by bit, and I'm gonna do everything in my power to let you retain some semblance of human will until the last minute. Personally, I think that's kind of stupid. I think that's dumb. Why would you do that? Either just take it out now, because for me, that seems like a slow torture, right? Like slowly, slow. It's like Alzheimer's for me. Slowly losing your memory, and maybe just holding on enough of your memory to know that you're losing your memory. That sounds god awful. Why would you do that? I guess it's Vegapunk's way of being nice, being kind, letting him do certain things. Maybe that's why, maybe it helps Oda explain how Vegapunk was able to watch after the Sunny when, the crew was sent away for the 2 years, I guess. But honestly, that just seems kind of cruel and unusual punishment for me. But I digress. I think the point that's being made is when we see Kuma again. I think this might be the last flashback chapter. Maybe we might get one more, but when we see Kuma again, it's gonna be on Egghead, and it's been set up since the beginning of Egghead. Lineage factor and will supersede all. We had what was her name? Stussy talking about what's worse, a human that's a robot now and lost their free will, or a clone that has their own will. And I think that was very interesting because she's saying, I'm a clone of someone else, but I don't have that person's will and desires and wants. I have my own. So I think that's very interesting. And I think this is all going to culminate into a moment where we have all the new Pacifista, the Seraphim, we have Kuma, and there's a moment where they're ordered to do something that they don't want to do. Like last chapter where Vegapunk talks about, well, the difference between being obedient on your own and being forced obedient because you don't have a free will is you would do everything the government says, right? But what if they ask you to kill an innocent child? And obviously Kuma in his head, he doesn't say anything, but I think it's the obvious answer to all of us is that he wouldn't do it. He would rebel. He would renege on his promise because it's going too far, right? With this, it doesn't allow for such a thing. But I still do think that in a moment where a Gorosei member forces him to do something that is just unacceptable to who Kuma is as a core character, that's going to force that lineage factor, that will to emerge, even if we thought it was gone. If for some reason Kuma shows up and is told to kill Bonnie, or Bonnie is under threat, he is not going to do it, and it might snap him out of it. All these Seraphim, we saw Boa Hancock rebel. We've seen so many people rebel. So I really, really do see that will and lineage factor, and just, it doesn't matter how much someone controls you, whatever, at the end of the day, there will always be a part of you, no matter how small, no matter how hidden it is, it will always remain there. And it just takes a certain stimuli to get it to act. And we're going to see that with Kuma, that even though he's supposed to have completely lost all of his free will and all that stuff, his will, his love for Bonnie is just going to be so much so that he's going to be able to overwrite any authority that anyone has over him to do what he chooses to do what he wants, and to invoke his will. Anyway, thank you guys for tuning in. This has been Otaku Talk. It's me, your boy, your host, OD. Can't wait for the next chapter. I think we have a break next week, so we have quite some time. Anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed. Like I said, make sure to like, share, and subscribe. Anyway, take care. Peace.